Hey guys, wanted to go ahead and do a review of the Star City 5 Pro. Thank you for the recommendations. There were 2 comments that mentioned, hey, check these out. These might be something you might want to check out. So wanted to give you my thoughts on these and to go from there. Okay, so basically, I just want to let you guys know off the bat, when I review these, I'm not listening for what sounds great and things like that. I'm actually looking for something that's actually a little bit more accurate, something that's going to be useful for singers, for audio engineers, for voice actors, basically someone who is looking for something that's accurate, right? And so that's kind of the overall theme of kind of what my channel is all about. And yeah, let's go right into it. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to go off topic because I think it's important because it'll give you context, right? So yesterday, I actually reviewed the Salnotes Zero, and dude, this is such a banger. At $20, these are accurate, and they're actually surprisingly accurate. Like when I listen to myself on a microphone, dude, I know my voice better than anyone else. I know what each headphone is doing to my voice. I know what they're all doing. And so when I actually listen with the Salnotes Zero, it actually does sound like my voice. It's pretty accurate. I noticed that when I listen to tracks, I check like different guy singers. They sound pretty much on the dot. Just slightly synthetic, but it's pretty much on the dot. When I listen to female singers, they sound pretty much on the dot. This is a banger for $20. But what I also like about these is that this will actually point out flaws in your mix. So let's say it's Mariah Carey, she's sibilant.
I gotta go somewhere, so can we make this quick?
Yeah.
And she should sound sibilant. It will point it out, but it doesn't scratch your face. It just lets you know. But also what I like about this is it gives you proper degrees of problems. In other words, if it's a minor problem, it's like, don't worry about it. It's a minor problem. But if it's a major problem, it lets you know. So this is the problem with these, and I'm going to get right into it. The Star City 5 Pro, in my opinion, does not have proper degrees. It will let even the smallest issues in your sound quite harsh. And so, like, in other words, if it has just a little bit of sibilance, it'll bring it out. It'll be like, you've got sibilance here, you've got sibilance here. And there were actually many songs that I would listen to with this where it actually genuinely ruined the song for me, because it actually would have like for example, like cymbals and things like that would just sound really harsh, or parts of sibilance would sound really harsh. But anyway, that's beside the point. Let's go ahead and talk about what would I say the tonality of these is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a comparison of all the IEMs, at least I own right now, that will give you some context as to how it sounds. Most reviewers actually go over this in the end. I think it's more important to talk about it in the beginning so you have some context, right? So before I go on further, let's go ahead and pull up a graph here, okay? So the if this is warm, and this is neutral, and this is bright, and I would say the Blessing 2 and the Tanchjim Origin are more neutral bright, and then I would say the Studio 4 and the Hexa are kind of neutral, and the Pure is more warmish, then this is bright. This is a bright IEM. It's not a neutral bright IEM, because the Blessing 2 and the Tanchjim Origin are clearly warmer than this. Then this is a bright IEM. Okay? So let's go through the motions really quickly and go from there. So this is the Truthear Hexa. So this is, in my opinion, is more warmer than this. It has more warmth than this. And overall is, I would say, if the Truthear Hexa is more neutral, or is neutral, then this is not neutral bright. This is bright, because I'm going to talk about things that are neutral bright that are warmer than this. But this has more warmth than this. But from a point of critical issues, this will actually point out sibilance and issues of sibilance in your track. Whereas I feel like the Truthear Hexa tends to round them out, right? So I feel like that's actually one of my complaints about the Truthear Hexa, is that it tends to issues like mouth clicks and sibilance and things like that. It will round it out. If you go back and you look at your track, you will still have sibilance in your track. You will still have mouth clicks in your track. Whereas these actually do point it out. So it's a toss-up, but this is closer to neutral, is what I'm saying. This is the Truthear Pure. The Truthear Pure is more warm, more fuzzy, more chocolatey sounding. With the Tanchjim Origin, it brightens that down, brings it down a little bit, and makes it closer to the Crinacle Dusk. When you add this, I swear to God it does. But this is not accurate. It's not meant to be accurate. It's more for musicality, for enjoyment. So this is actually just for enjoyment, the Truthear Pure. This is the Crinacle Dusk. The Crinacle Dusk is, a lot of people say it sounds really, really enjoyable. This is not for critical editing. I would not use this for critical use. This is just more for enjoyment. This, I would say, is maybe neutral warm is closer to neutral. This is not bright, okay, in my opinion. But I wouldn't say this is a flat neutral line. If this was neutral, it's got a little bit of bass and it rolls off the treble. It's kind of my thoughts regarding the Dusk. Regarding the Studio 4, the Studio 4 is less harsh compared to this. This is quite harsh in many tracks. The Studio 4, I don't know. I'm actually beginning to question whether this should be considered something good for critical editing, because I actually find that on a lot of sibilant tracks, it actually rounds it up. And that's why it's so enjoyable to listen to, because on female vocals, it keeps the air and the beautiful fullness of their voice, but all the treble, it rounds it out. I mean, all the harshness, it rounds it out, and that's why it sounds so good, but it's not a true representation. But that being said, this has really good soundstage and everything, and I can see in one way why people say it's great for mixing, but for critical editing, like let's say voiceover, I wouldn't rely on these because it tends to make sibilants, it tends to round it out. Kind of similar to what the Hexa does too. These both kind of round out sibilants, you know what I mean? So that's, and also this too. This will round out sibilants too, which is better for musicality. This, on the other hand, on areas of sibilants and area, it'll point it out, and it's very harsh. Now, what I do find interesting is actually this doesn't round out sibilants. Actually, this actually truly it shows you it, which actually why I think in many ways this is actually pretty good, because, for example, that main track, the Mariah Carey sibilants track, it's where Mariah Carey's talking and she's really sibilants. It lets you know, dude, it's sibilants. Versus, I actually found with the Truthear Hexa, it doesn't really show you it as clearly, or with the Studio 4 it doesn't show it as clearly. This will obviously shows it very, very clearly. Okay, the other one I'll talk about is the Tanchjim Origin. The Tanchjim Origin is actually warmer than this, and it has more low end than this, and it also, when I listen to it my voice, this sounds like me, so it's more accurate. So in my opinion, if this is considered neutral bright, okay, and the Moondrop Blessing 2 is considered neutral bright, well, that makes this bright because these have more low end than this. So that's my 2 cents. All across the board, I kept thinking the Tanchjim Origin is a upgraded of this all across the board. It's a better version of this all across the board. I couldn't help stop thinking it. There are IEMs that are clearly veering in different paths, that clearly sound different. Like the Truthear Pure sounds nothing like this. Whereas I felt like the Tanchjim Origin was no, they're relatives. They're like brothers or sisters, but this is better, is what I was noticing. So the Tanchjim Origin, it's much more full. Vocals sound more sound more accurate. It sounds like when I track and I'm on a microphone, this sounds more like me. This, how it sounds like me, is it sounds like my voice if there was a high pass filter on. In other words, all the rumble and grumble in my voice is removed. And I actually started to notice that even in songs and even with other singers. And I'll go over music right after this, shortly after we go over the other IEMs. The next one I'll talk about is the Sennheiser IE200. Now, the Sennheiser IE200 is kind of just a really, in my opinion, I think it's actually pretty smooth. But, when some people say, oh, it's got treble peaks, dude, you ain't seen treble peaks, man. This is fucking way more treble peaks than this. So if you ever, for those people out there in the world that thinks that the Sennheiser IE200 has treble peaks, this has way, 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 way more treble peaks than this, okay? So you will not enjoy this if you thought the Sennheiser IE200 had treble peaks, is what I'm going to tell you. Okay, Moondrop Blessing 2. Moondrop Blessing 2, in my is better than this all across the board. Technicals, in terms of soundstage and all that, I thought was better, but this also has, it's more musically enjoyable. You know what I mean? The problem I found with this is that this actually can ruin songs, flat out, because what it does is, and this is actually why I want to bring back the Salnotes 0. What's important is when in a track, if there's sibilants or there's problems, you should show proper degrees of it. In other words, if it's a minor issue, you don't have to scratch someone's face saying it's a big problem. See, this will only really bring up something if it's major, And with the Blessing 2, it definitely brings out and lets you know if you have harsh sibilants, but it does have degrees of it. This, I feel like, is even on the smallest problems will actually make it sound really harsh. You know what I mean? So I just don't find these very enjoyable, but also at the same time, I find that these actually give you a false positive. In other words, it will make things that are even just slightly sibilants, really sibilants. You know what I mean? So there's that. Regarding I'll kind of put these in the same category, even though they're not quite the same. These cost a lot more. This is the Mach 60s, and then this is the Beyerdynamic DT70 IE. These have more low end, and these are more accurate. In my opinion, they sound more closer to my voice. And also, these give proper scaling when it comes to sibilance. In other words, if it's a minor issue, it doesn't bother you. But if it's a medium issue, it'll let you know, but it won't scratch your face. And if it's a major issue, it'll let you know, but it won't scratch your face. These obviously have a lot more soundstage compared to this, but the price difference is not fair, right? But I'm just quickly going over that. Next one I'll talk about. This is actually kind of, I would say they're different. Like in many ways, these are two similar. Not similar, but what I mean is these are both bangers. This is like $99. This is the what is it? The Thieaudio Legacy 2. These are actually pretty accurate. Like, it actually does sound like my voice. It actually does, in sibilance, actually does let you know. And it's pretty, it's really great for critical editing and for tracking, This, I feel like, can be more harsh than this. And speaking of harsh, I need to bring up a really interesting point, and it's the Etymotic ER2XR. I consider the Etymotic ER2XR quite accurate. It'll let you know issues with your sound, everything about it. This is more harsh than the Etymotic ER2XR. Basically, the ER2XR has good scaling too. In other words, if it's not that bad, it won't bother you about it. But if it's bad, it lets you know. This lets the smallest issues sound bad. And that's why I don't really find these enjoyable, but I also find that these give a lot of false positives. All right, so now let's talk about music. And when I was tracking and testing different things with music, which gives me it tells me more about these IEMs. So the first thing I did was I wanted to check for, by the way, I tested all the ear tips. So if people say, so you didn't do all the ear tips. No, I tested everything. Okay. So whatever I'm telling you right now was optimal conditions. I just didn't want to go over every page going, well, this tip did that and that tip did that. I'm no longer going to do that anymore because that makes the video too long. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to do was get a pulse on what is the bass on this sounding like, right? So there's a song by BB called Weekend, and the bass goes boom, 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 boom. And it lets me know, because each of these IEMs give you a pulse of what it does to the bass, right? So with this, the bass is accurate. The bass is punchy. The bass is clean. But the sub bass is gone. That subwoofery sound is gone. And I was like, uh-oh, what's going on here? Why is that gone, right? So the second test I did was I know this song called Tinted. And that song has a lot of sub bass in it. And I'm like, you better detect it there. You better not nerf it.
Let the music play. Summer's on the way.
I go ahead and I play that song. Okay, and I'm going to play it right now. That song has quite a bit of sub bass in it. This removes that out. It's like not even, it's almost like, I don't want to say remove it, but it's nerfing it. It's getting rid of a lot of it. So it's removing a lot of sub bass. And I was like, whoa, that's not good. And then what I did was I actually went and put on a microphone, the same microphone I use all the time, and at least for these tests to keep it consistent, and I listened to myself on it. It sounds like my voice is going through a high-pass filter. That means a lot of the rumble and bass is kind of removed out of my voice, which is not good. Then what I did was, okay, let me check male vocals. So there's a song that I use as a reference track by Justin Bieber. And his voice sounds correct and accurate, but a lot of the fullness of his voice a lot of it's like gone, right? And then, but what I noticed, there was another issue with that song I never saw before, and it was a problem. It would actually, the cymbals, there's like these little cymbals that play in the background started to get really harsh and annoying and it throughout the song. And I was like, dude, this is butchering the song. Like it literally, areas of a lot of music, just a lot of cymbals were just really accentuated. And so what I did was, okay, I'm gonna test another song. There's this song, Naive by Genevieve.
It took a while, but now I see what you really are.
This is a song I play on repeat. It plays on repeat when I'm just randomly on Reddit or whatever. Dude, I played this song on that. At 1 minute in, 1 minute and 2 seconds in, it just sounds as harsh, right? It just sounds really harsh and sibilant. I'm like, dude, and it's unenjoyable, right? So what this does is it actually, this is what I said here. I said, this is Justin Bieber, he sounds correct, but there's a bit of low end fullness that isn't there. And then what I do is, it just, and then finally, on that song by Genevieve, that's a song I've always listened to on repeat. I first fit 1 minute in, it sounds harsh. So my overall thoughts, if I had to explain this, is that this removes a lot of sub bass from music. This removes a little bit of fullness from the voice, from vocals. This accentuates sibilance. So everything the slightest bit of sibilance will sound really harsh. But also, finally, things like cymbals and things like that are just really, it just draws attention to it, and it literally kills a song for me. So, in my opinion, this is a hot take, and I feel bad because this was a genuine recommendation from comments. They were trying to help me out in here, and they were being nice about it. But in my opinion, are these enjoyable? No, they're not enjoyable. But are these accurate? No, I actually think that even this Salnotes Zero at $20 is a little bit more accurate, because actually it gives you the proper degrees of how bad it is. If it's not that bad, it lets you go. This just makes every little tiny bit of sibilance sound harsh. These are even more strict and more harsh than the Etymotic ER2XR. So I don't think I would actually keep these, because I don't think it's good at either. So that's my 2 cents. Hopefully that was helpful to someone. Okay, bye.